Hello, everybody.
Howdy.
We're back with some more from the blood booklet. The 19...
Oh my goodness. Woo!
Making me dizzy. Of course that book makes me dizzy.
Yes, my eye is just fine.
Don't get me to laughing again.
Well, where do we want to begin? I guess maybe let's begin with the paragraph. And you've got your scripture ready, right? 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 15.
We also happen to have one of the DPAs that witnesses are given the power of attorney for health care that they had to fill out. So that is some interesting stuff on that one too. So we'll be going through just a few things on that.
Well, what's interesting about that is it just happens to be a family member's DPA. We're not going to say who, but it's interesting. We're looking at the date, and it was filled out in 2001. You know, before the infamous changing of God's law. No. This family member checked, "I refuse all fractions derived from any primary component of blood." And then they write... Now it's a conscience matter.
Yeah. And then they handwrite in, "No blood transfusions. Whole blood, red cells, white cells, platelets, or blood plasma be given to me." So they wanted to make sure that it was very specific.
No fractions.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's also interesting is another family member was filling out their DPA. And I can remember sitting at the book study, and she asked the book study conductor, who just happened to have been an ex-circuit overseer, you know, because they have all of these questions, and you need to check which ones and initial them, which ones you will allow and which ones you refuse. And she was asking him, what is all of this? Because I mean, it's a lot here to
Well, it really shows that when it comes to this blood issue, Jehovah's Witnesses cannot comprehend on their own what's taking place, because what was the question asked to the circuit overseer?
The family member asked the Bible study conductor, well, I'm not sure which ones to check. And his answer was, oh, well, just go ahead and check all of them, because there is no wrong answer.
Yeah, I heard that myself.
Yeah, there is no wrong answer.
So it just shows that the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves really don't have a clue what they're trying to understand when it comes to this matter of blood and God's law.
You hear that, Watchtower? Your elders are telling the members who are asking them about these DPAs, oh, there is no wrong answer, which means some of them, you could take blood fractions.
Exactly. But here's some more whimsical nonsense regarding God's law about blood and medicine. Page 14, I'm going to start at the bottom of the paragraph. I'm going to read the paragraph. Excuse me. It says, "Mature Christians who are confronted with a decision to make as to the acceptability of medical therapy that involves the use of blood are not going to take the viewpoint that since technique has changed, the law no longer applies. They are not going to feel that if they have some of their own blood stored for transfusion, it is going to be more acceptable than the blood of another person. They know that God required that shed blood be poured out on the ground." Well, let's just pause here for a minute, because on one of the DPAs, they talk about salvaging blood that's still in contact with the body. So some Christians, some Jehovah's Witnesses, feel that that is an acceptable method, is to salvage the blood, and others do not. But yet when they say right here, that's not an acceptable measure, Jehovah's Witnesses. Even though techniques change, God's law still applies.
Well, even question 6 here, "Medical procedures involving my own blood that do not involve storage of my blood for later infusion into me or someone else." Initial one of the 3 choices. And, one of the choices, "I refuse any procedure involving the use of my blood during an operation or ongoing therapy." "I accept only the following procedures," where you can write in your own, or "I accept any procedure involving the use of my blood during an operation or ongoing therapy." So
it just shows that what Knorr printed, it seems like Knorr escapes a lot of this stuff, doesn't he? We all seem to focus on Russell, we all seem to focus on Rutherford, we all seem to focus on Franz, and more recently, the idiotic governing body, but we all seem to forget how stupid Knorr's writings were.
Because that's his time period.
Because this is his time period. So, Brother Knorr, excuse me, God rest his soul. Let's continue on. Okay, they know that God required that shed blood be poured out on the ground. Nor are they going to feel that a slight infraction, such as momentary storage of blood in a syringe when it is drawn from one part of the body or for injection into another part, is something less objectionable than storing it for a longer period of time. They are not trying to see how close they can walk to the line without overstepping the law. This is when it gets fascinating, folks.
Fascinating?
Fascinating. This is the fascinating writings of Knorr.
You sound like Walter from Jeff Dunham's ventriloquist dummy.
Let me clear my throat for this one. Instead, they copy the fine example of David, the one whom Jehovah said was a man after his own heart, and who, in the matter of blood, avoided doing anything that even resembled violation of the divine prohibition.
Okay.
Okay, stop. Hold the phone. Stop right there. King David did anything?
Did everything to avoid doing anything that even resembled violation of the... Okay.
Okay, but wasn't part of the Ten Commandments, divine law, thou shalt not murder? All right, let's go to Samuel, chapter 11, verse 15. Let's just see how David did everything in his power to avoid doing anything that even resembled violating God's law. You ready?
Yeah, which verse you want me to read?
Oh, it was 11:15.
Okay. So we all know the story. How
David
Uriah
and Bathsheba and Uriah.
Okay, so in the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah.
Oh.
So Uriah has to carry this letter.
His own death sentence. David made Uriah carry his own death sentence.
Oh my God!
Oh, David, he was the one that was after Jehovah's heart, right, Watchtower?
So he writes this letter and sent it by the hand of Uriah. He wrote in the letter, "Put Uriah in the front lines where the fighting is fiercest, then retreat from behind him so that he will be struck down and die." Verse 16, Joab had been carefully watching the city, and he stationed Uriah where he knew there were mighty warriors. 17, when the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of David's servants fell, and Uriah the Hittite was among those who died. So David did anything to avoid...
David was absolutely...
violation of the divine...
blood guilty.
Yeah. And he made Uriah carry his own death sentence.
Now, let's just get back to this blood thing for a little bit. And I'm going to get frank here. When it comes to the marriage arrangement as it was perceivably installed in the Garden of Eden, and why the marriage arrangement is so sacred in God's eyes, in the perfect world, the woman is a virgin. And when she has relationships with a man for the first time, that hymen is broken. Blood is spilt. That blood, like any sexually transmitted disease, will travel up the urethra, and part of that blood from the woman is in the man.
Blood covenant?
It's a blood covenant. David also violated that blood covenant between Uriah and Bathsheba. So for Watchtower to come out and print that Jehovah's Witnesses will be faithful like David, You know, they copy the example of David, the one whom Jehovah said was a man after his own heart, and who, in the matter of blood, now wait a minute, the matter of blood also would include Noah and Watchtower, the marriage arrangement, which is a covenant arrangement. Because like I said, when the hymen's broken, blood is spilt. The two shall become one soul, and they're bound by a blood covenant. David broke that blood covenant, Watchtower.
And weren't you having a nice conversation with Deep Throat this morning?
Yes, but that's going to be in another video.
Oh, another one.
Yes, regarding the blood book, because I shared some of this stuff with Deep Throat this morning, and he gave me some ideas for the video, which I never thought of, and it's like, Deep Throat, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because I don't think I would have thought about that. But anyhow, Jehovah's Witnesses, do you fully understand what Watchtower is saying here? They're using medical science to trick you into believing that King David did everything to avoid violating God's law, but he broke a blood covenant between Uriah and Bathsheba, and then he plotted and had the murder of Uriah carried out.
I think that makes him blood guilty.
He's absolutely blood guilty.
And why couldn't he build Jehovah's temple?
Yeah, because he had blood on his hands.
Yeah, Solomon had to build it because David had blood on his hands. I think that makes him blood guilty.
So I really have to believe that when Noah was authorizing the writing of this blood medicine and God's law, I think he was smoking something, because you could absolutely see that this booklet had to have been written in haste. They had to hurry up and get it out, because a thinking, logical person, somebody who has their wits about them, would have never, ever thought to use David as an example of someone who didn't do anything to violate God's law, when the scriptures plainly state he did violate God's law.
Yeah, and there's so many more other examples they could have used. But you used David?
But now here comes the $10 million question, Kim. Jehovah's Witnesses, if you can comprehend this next statement, think about it. If David violated those two laws on blood and God forgave him, then it stands to reason that in God's mercy, that if you accept the blood transfusion to save your life, not take a life, but save your life, or donate blood to save somebody's life, then why can't God also forgive you? Why can't God also say the same thing? Instead, they copy the fine example of David, the one whom Jehovah said was a man after his own heart. If you donate blood and it helps save your fellow man, why would that not be forgiven like God forgave David for his insidious crimes? Think about it, Jehovah's Witnesses. This matter of blood that Watchtower is causing you to lay down your life for, nothing becomes nothing more than legalized human sacrifice. And I've got more to show how much more ridiculous Noah was and Watchtower back in the 60s when they wrote this piece of slick shit.
Slick shit?
Slick shit, because this is all this is. It's nothing but slick shit. Wait till we get to the next part. Trust me, it's just as bad as the first video we did on soul fractions. Ay, 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 ay.
You all have a great week.
Bye.